T.Rex vs. Spinosaurus is one of the greatest dinosaur rivalries of all time. Today we're going to be going through and dissecting who would win in the Jurassic franchise between the Spinosaurus and the strongest incarnation of the T-Rex. This is the first part in a series of dinosaur battles. Here I have a bracket list that I've made. It is random, but Rexy versus the Spinosaurus happened to be one of the first ones on the list. When whoever wins, I'm going to check the box and they're going to move on to the next round. Hopefully, I'm going to do these videos relatively quickly, so expect these quite often until the series is done, and we'll have the final strongest dinosaur in Jurassic. Our first contestant is the Spinosaurus. The Spinosaurus was born in 1999 as part of the amalgamation testing. Just the amalgam testing, and was one of a few illegal species released onto Isla Sorna. It severely damaged the ecosystem, and we see it for the first time in Jurassic Park 3 when it's 2 years old, but not yet fully grown. During this time, it attacked Alan Grant and Isla Sorna, and unfortunately the Spinosaurus didn't appear again for a very long time. However, it was a controversial dinosaur at the time for filming the T-Rex in this movie. It appeared later in Netflix's Camp Cretaceous in 2016, where it was shown to be far larger and fully grown. You can see here how the Spinosaurus sized up between the two movies. Between the movie and the show. They're not both movies. Here we're going to go over its stats. For the size of the Spinosaurus, we're going to be using its 2016 stats with 54 feet long, 19 feet tall, and about 10 tons. There's no exact canonical weight for the Spinosaurus, but that's my best estimate. Our next contestant is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. In the Jurassic timeline, there were at least 9 Tyrannosaurus Rex born, originally 7 bred by InGen. Of the strongest of these Rexes is arguably Rexy, the queen of Isla Nublar. Rexy was the largest Tyrannosaurus Rex and also lived for the longest. T-Rex has appeared in every Jurassic movie, originally in Jurassic Park. But by the time of 2023 in Jurassic World Dominion, Rexy was quite an old T-Rex and was not as much in her prime. However, in the time of 1993, she was also quite an inexperienced Tyrannosaurus, so we're going to be using her from 2002, which was probably at her prime, right before she was captured and brought to Jurassic World. This puts Rexy's stats at 44 feet long, 17 feet tall, and 9 tons. This is an exact canonical rating that hasn't changed. That's what it is. We know because Rexy has appeared on many of the size charts for the dinosaurs for several of the movies. We're going to go ahead and jump into our first category, that being weaponry and damage. When I put these two creatures next to each other, you can clearly see how the Spinosaurus may have an advantage. Due to its larger jaws and massive forearms that can provide it quite an advantage in a fight. But we have to consider the bite force of the T-Rex. In real life, during the Mesozoic era, Tyrannosaurus Rex had quite possibly the strongest bite of any land animal ever, upwards of 10,000, perhaps 12,000 psi, pressure per square inch. Though in the Jurassic franchise, while the T-Rex does have an enormous jaws and is most certainly a quite powerful bite, it clearly is not as powerful as it was in real life. You see, the Tyrannosaurus in the movies, when it bites down on people, it bites through them, but they don't explode like they would if a T-Rex actually bit down on them. So we have to consider the fact that a T-Rex's bite force is much lower than that of the actual Tyrannosaurus. However, I still think it's larger than the Spinosaurus in the Jurassic franchise, because you can simply tell from the shape of the jaws that the Spinosaurus is more narrow snout. While it provides it with some range, it definitely doesn't carry the same power as the Tyrannosaurus. So for their primary weapon, the Tyrannosaurus is going to take the edge by having the far more powerful jaws. But when it comes to the Spinosaurus' arms, we can see in every fight in the Jurassic franchise with a carnivore with large arms against the Tyrannosaurus, they use it to their advantage. When we look at the Indominus Rex, it's able to quickly subdue Rexy by using its arms to claw her face and keep her main weapon away until it can get in a good bite. The Spinosaurus does similar things, in Jurassic Park 3 when it's able to twist the Rex's neck, and it also uses its arms in its fight with Big Edie in Camp Cretaceous Season 5. While both creatures have an extreme bulk, we can see that the T-Rex uses that more in fighting, while the Spinosaurus usually relies on its slicing weapons like its claws and its jaws. Even when the T-Rex is destroying the car in the first Jurassic Park movie, it doesn't usually bite through it, it just crashes into the car a lot. And we can see this in its fight with the Giganotosaurus. It sort of tries to muscle its enemies away. And this, however, does not seem to be successful in its fight against the Indominus Rex because of the I-Rex's longer arms. And I think that the same logic will apply in its fight with the Spinosaurus. The Spinosaurus' greater reach will make the Rex unable to try to use its bulk because the Spinosaurus will be able to redirect its attacks. So in weaponry, I'm going to put them at a pretty similar place. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say the Spino has the slight advantage. The next category is durability and endurance. When it comes to durability, we can see that these are both extremely durable animals. The Spinosaurus was hit by a plane, and while it did draw blood, the Spinosaurus was still able to operate successfully, and even shortly after, killing the bull T-Rex. However, I think we can get even better information on their durability from Camp Cretaceous, which you might say isn't as good of a source for dinosaur fights, but it is part of canon, and I think that it still is a decent source for this information. In the show, we see a fight between a fully grown Spinosaurus and a fully grown Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is basically what this is trying to answer, except we're not just using any T-Rex in this scenario. In the show, the Spinosaurus is able to defeat Big Edie after an extended fight, but the Spino was later forced to back down by both Big Edie and Little Edie, by having to fight both of them at once. We can see during this fight that they both take pretty significant damage and are bitten and kicked several times, but the main thing that actually goes to the T-Rex here is that Big Edie survived, taking a serious injury from the Spinosaurus, having its neck bitten down on, and nearly being killed, and was able to come back in the next episode. So this awards quite a lot of points to the T-Rex for both durability and endurance. However, I think its most significant feat in this category comes from the movie Jurassic World, when the T-Rex fights the Indominus Rex. The Indominus Rex, much like the T-Rex, has a very significant bite force, and the T-Rex is bitten on the neck several times and is clawed in the face, and despite losing the initial fight, is able to get back up, regain its balance, and keep fighting. This is a lot of points for endurance, and while it's possible the Spino may be able to do similar things, we haven't seen it really have to perform these feats on screen. But one more thing I want to mention in the Spino's favor is that when it was burned by fire, it did not get any perceived injury. So I think its durability is likely very high, and I want to mention that also during its fight with the T-Rex in Jurassic Park 3, it's bitten down on the neck, and while it is bleeding, it doesn't seem to maintain these injuries significantly throughout the rest of the movie. They were superficial injuries, and that's a bite from a T-Rex, so that's pretty significant. All in all, I'm going to give the edge on durability and endurance. They're pretty equal in durability, but I'm going to say the T-Rex has a slightly higher endurance. However, it's hard to say with much certainty on this because we really don't have enough material on the Spinosaurus. Speed of these dinosaurs and their determination is quite a topic, especially on the side of the T-Rex. In actual times, the T-Rex could not run very well because of the weight that is bearing down on its legs, so it wouldn't have been particularly fast, but as we all know in the movie, John Hammond says,
well, we clocked the T-Rex to 32 miles an hour.
A well-known line at this point because of the scene later when the T-Rex is chasing the Jeep Wrangler. This all goes to show that Rexy is a very fast Tyrannosaurus and one of the faster animals in the franchise. However, we can't discount the speed of the Spinosaurus as well, and most notably its determination. This is the reason I put it in this category, because the Spinosaurus doesn't like humans because it was created in relatively harsh conditions by humans on Isla Sorna, so it makes sense why it would hold a grudge against the people in Jurassic Park 3 after being hit by their plane. However, its determination is so extreme that over the course of the entire movie, it's so determined that it will chase them across the entire island and risk injury of itself just to track them down. It's also extremely fast because it's able to keep up with them even when they go in vehicles like the boats. Although we don't really see it use extreme speed, we can tell that it's faster than the humans when they're running away from it at the scene with the satellite phone in Jurassic Park 3. We don't get good taste of its speed in Camp Cretaceous, although it is able to trace down humans and outspeed the Smilodon. However, I don't really think that's a good demonstration of its speed. So in speed, I'm going to give it to the T-Rex, since mostly for lack of evidence on the side of the Spinosaurus. But for determination, it most certainly goes to the Spinosaurus, who I cannot see backing down from a fight. I could see the T-Rex backing down if it had to, though I don't think either of these animals are likely to. And in this scenario, it doesn't really matter because this is a fight to the death. Either way, it's not going to be a tie like it would be in an actual scenario where they would not fight unless they absolutely had to. We're going to discuss the intelligence, and then before I decide the victor, we're going to go over a few misconceptions that you may have for this fight. So, for intelligence, in paleoaccuracy, the T-Rex was most likely far more intelligent than the Spinosaurus due to its brain-body ratio. Being one of the best of any dinosaurs, it was most likely one of the most intelligent dinosaurs to ever live. And I don't think the Spinosaurus had a tiny brain, but it didn't have this notable intelligence. But in the Jurassic franchise, this is a little bit different. The T-Rex isn't shown to be particularly intelligent or unintelligent, and the fact that it could only see movement in the Jurassic franchise may provide a disadvantage. Though the Spinosaurus does often show to be quite intelligent because it was able to recognize the same humans and recognize their plane as a plane and what caused its damage after it even crashed into the trees. It was able to figure out how to beat the T-Rex instead of blindly attacking like most animals would. So for intelligence, I think that they're comparable in the Jurassic franchise, but I'm going to give the edge to the Spinosaurus. To me, it seems like a more cunning creature, a little bit like the Indominus, not quite to that degree, but that same sort of quality. I guess that comes with it being a villain creature. But for misconceptions, these are some things that are not true. One, a lot of people think that if you break the sail of the Spinosaurus, it will die. Its spinal cord is in its spine like any normal animal. These are just extra structure that's built on top of its spine, an extension of the vertebrae. It's not containing the spinal column. It doesn't need it to survive. The T-Rex, the vision, that's not how its vision worked in real life, but since this is Jurassic Park, we are going to be going with its vision being based on movement. But in a fight, that's not going to be very much of a disadvantage. 3, the Spinosaurus is not a hybrid. I don't know why people keep saying this. They're saying it because it's inaccurate, but at the time of the making of the movie Jurassic Park 3, the Spinosaurus design was pretty much up to date with current scientific thinking. And people are saying just because it's inaccurate, it must be a hybridized creature. It's not how dinosaurs work in Jurassic Park. The Spinosaurus was an amalgamation, meaning that it's mostly DNA from Spinosaurus, but they were experimenting with DNA mixing at the time. That's true for all the creatures in the amalgam testing. That includes the Corythosaurus, Ankylosaurus, and Ceratosaurus, as well as the Spinosaurus. Alright, now we're going to go on to deciding the winner. I'm sure a lot of you want one person to win or the other, simply because the Spinosaurus has the most victories in the franchise, that means it must win, or just because T-Rex is the classic, that means it must win. But I'm going to be going on the evidence that we have in the franchise. And from this information, I can decide that most of the time, Spinosaurus would defeat Rexy in a battle. Yeah, I know a lot of people want the T-Rex to get its retribution after being defeated twice by a T-Rex, every time losing in a 1v1, only losing in a 2v1 against 2 T-Rexes. And while Rexy is the most powerful T-Rex, she's not all that much more powerful from T-Rexes like Big Edie that we see in Camp Cretaceous. And the Spinosaurus is quite simply the largest carnivorous dinosaur in the franchise that we've seen, reaching a length of 54 feet. And just because it's the largest doesn't mean it wins, but because of its speed, agility, maneuverability, intelligence, determination. Basically, the T-Rex is, as we've seen, not super well suited to fighting creatures like the Spinosaurus. And while I'm not saying it would never win, I would say the Spinosaurus would win 8 out of 10 times, so it's going to get this victory and move on to the next round in our bracket. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can come back sometime soon to see the next episode in this series, and you can subscribe to the channel and stick around to see who wins the entire bracket. Thank you for watching.